Welcome back. While a local NGO is lobbying to reduce speed limits around schools to 30 kilometers per hour, South Africans Against Drug Driving says this will seriously reduce road fatalities.
Studies show only 1 in 10 people survive a 60 kilometer per hour crash, while that number increases to 9 out of 10 at 30 kilometers per hour. Let's get more from the organization's Caro Smit. A very good morning to you, Caro. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, 30 kilometers per hour, there would be motorists who would say, essentially, you're asking us to just not drive, period. How do you then respond to people who are against what you are lobbying for?
Basically,
oh, it looks like, there you are.
We need to rethink what happens with the streets. You know, the streets, too much emphasis has been placed on the streets and just for drivers. We've got to think about all the other people who also use the streets, like pedestrians and cyclists and everybody. I mean, in Africa, 1 billion people walk and cycle. So we've got to look at their rights. And if we think about it, the leading cause of death in children is car crashes from 5 to 29. So we need to really look at evidence-based practices in how we reduce this. And one of the ways to reduce this is to bring the speeds down to 30 kilometers.
You know, as you're speaking about this, Caro, particularly within the school premises, right, any school premises, a lot of times some of these schools, especially in township schools, they don't have a scholar patrol. You know, I grew up in a time where having a scholar patrol was an absolute must in school to be able to stop young kids from crossing the road and not being able to look at exactly what's happening, and this abrupt kind of accidents that happen, particularly when it comes to public transportation. So a lot of the kids get picked up by public transport, and sometimes the public transport does not even adhere to the rules of the road. But here it's about enforcement. So how then do we start encouraging, even, never mind the introduction of 30 kilometers per hour, but the enforcement of 30 kilometers per hour, especially in those places where there's not even a scholar patrol around?
Well, you're 100% right. One of the most important aspects in road safety is enforcement. Okay, but what the evidence shows is that just speed reduction in Africa doesn't work. So what we also need is we need to actually have traffic calming measures outside the schools. So speed humps, speed tables, because if they put a speed table outside the schools, it will reduce the speed limit to 30 kilometers because people can't speed. So certainly, like the city of Cape Town have bought into this recommendation by the United Nations Road Safety Council and the World Health Organization to reduce the speeds and to put traffic calming measures. And they have pledged to put traffic calming measures outside every single school in Cape Town. So we're asking the rest of South Africa to start and to not accept the fact that children should be at risk when they go to school. We're asking them to start insisting that there are special pedestrian sidewalks that are separated from the traffic, that speeds are 30 kilometers outside the schools. And to start with, because obviously traffic calming measures are exceptionally expensive, and they take time to be put in. But if everybody can start by looking at their school, going to their local councillor, going to the sub-council meeting, this is what I found really works. You go to the sub-council meeting, you put in an application, especially when there have been deaths or injuries in your area, and then legally they are obliged to go and send their engineer round to the school or the environment where the scholars are crossing and look at the feasibility of getting the speeds down to 30 kilometers. But the whole thing I say is don't give up. Don't give up. Just say we actually deserve to have 30 kilometers. Pedestrians, older people, children, the disabled, they all have a right to use the road, and they have a right to be safe. And they are much safer if speeds are 30 kilometers outside schools and high density areas. Because what the Decade of Action and World Health and everyone recognize is that people make mistakes. Children make mistakes. You know, children, for example, if they're playing at the side of the road and then someone kicks a ball into the street, children often don't think about, is it safe for me to run into the road? And they shouldn't be killed because of this. So if they're hit at 30 kilometers, there's a high chance they would survive. As you said, 1 in 10 chance they survive. Whereas if they're hit at 60 kilometers, the chance of them dying are very, very high. But enforcement, signs, separated pavement, traffic calming, these are all evidence-based practices that we should be implementing in South Africa.